think this is all going swimmingly. And I think Dan Burn described it as 10 minutes of madness.
What is he doing? Why is he there? That was the moment that, for me, killed the game.
Because you can't deny that Pope has made some brilliant saves.
It's been a brilliant signing for Newcastle.
And this is his whole problem, isn't it? He's not great judging those through balls.
If Nick Pope makes a mistake in that game, that's on Eddie Howe.
The best teams move players on. And it's time to, if we're going to be one of these best teams that we have been for the last 3 years, it's now time for Pope to come out of the team.
This show is brought to you by our partners at talkSPORT Bet. New customers get an exclusive offer of £40 in free bets when you bet £10. Go to talksportbet.com/inside the tomb to claim this offer now. Hello and welcome to Inside the Toon, where we take a deep dive into all things Newcastle United. I'm your host, Olly Clink. Joining me today is the head of sport at The Sun, Shaun, Custis, and journalist and Newcastle fan, Jack Cunningham. Gents, let's get straight into it, shall we? Newcastle were beaten 2-1 in the Champions League by Marseille. It all started so well, didn't it, Shaun? Harvey Barnes getting them into a 1-0 lead after just 6 minutes, and then yet again on the road, they unravelled a bit.
Yeah, I thought we broke the hoodoo, really, and everything was feeling positive because, as we've mentioned before in these podcasts, last season, after Brentford, Eddie Howe said, it's round the corner, we're going to pick up, it's going to get better. Same looked like it was going to happen this season after Brentford. Hey, Man City, what can you say? Great victory. And then we score first against Marseille, and we're playing pretty well, played really well up to half-time. And you think, this is all going swimmingly. And, I mean, I think Dan Burn described it as 10 minutes of madness, didn't he, after half-time? And it was, and we fell apart. In all honesty, did we look like we were going to get back and equalise? I didn't feel like it. It looked more likely that they were going to add another one. Aubameyang slightly surprised me, I've got to say, because by the time he left Arsenal, I thought he was finished as a striker. Howard warned us about him. He'd said, I think he's still in good shape, but he missed that header, first half, which is a terrible header. I thought, yeah, that's right. That's the Aubameyang who was leaving Arsenal, who didn't want to play anymore. And I've got to say, even though we could blame Pope a bit for his first goal, it's still a hell of an angle that he puts it in with. And his finish at the near post for the second one is exceptional. I mean, any striker in the world would be proud of that.
Yeah, it felt like 2018 again, didn't it? It's actually 8 goals in 9 games.
I know, he is.
He's recording against Newcastle.
He is annoying about that.
Against Newcastle. But let's talk about that first goal for Marseille, Jack, because Nick Pope is in complete no man's land. He's made a few errors this season. I think, personally, it's the worst one that he's made so far. And now people are starting to call for his place in the team. You've got Ramsdale waiting in the wings. What's your view on it?
What is he doing? What is he doing? Why is he there? Why is there any need for him to just come charging out there? Chow has it covered. Aubameyang is far wide on the right. He's going nowhere. It's not even a semblance of a chance. And then suddenly he comes rushing out his line. You can see Chow going like, what are you doing? Get back. And then it's too late. It's still a great finish by Aubameyang, but that was the moment that, for me, killed the game. Because I think the players then, they lost their heads a little bit because they're like, well, what's the keeper doing? Why is he doing that? I understand that from there you can recover and what have you, but I still think that moment, we were in relative control of the match. And then he does that.
Not 19 seconds into the second half.
We had kickoff. We had kickoff. It's ridiculous.
He
Honestly.
did against Man City, though, didn't he? He came out and he got away with it.
He got away with it. Haaland chipped it miles wide.
Right.
Yeah. I don't understand what he's doing. And look, if we think about big games this season where Nick Pope has cost us, if you think Arsenal at home, where he kicks the ball to no one, and then from the corner, he gets no one near Gabriel, they win. Then at 1-0 up against West Ham, makes a horrendous attempt at a save from a Lucas Paquetá shot, 1-1, momentum of the game changes. Obviously, look, Newcastle can deal with the momentum a little bit better, but still, goals change games, momentum's there. The momentum shift happens because of Nick Pope's mistake. Same against Brentford, same last night. It's costing us games, it's costing us points. It's time for him to come out the team.
Yeah. But we said in the last podcast, you asked us before the international break, should he change it? I said yes. I thought it was time. I think you were on the fence, were you not, Jared?
No. I said that we should change him, but I don't think Howe will.
But you didn't think he would.
Yeah,
and I wonder if Eddie reflects now. He probably should have done that.
Well, after the game, he did say that he still backs it.
He did,
which I get.
But what's he backing him about? Is he backing him about the fact that he still, as he said, makes great saves? Because you can't deny that Pope has made some brilliant
It's
saves
been
this
a
season.
brilliant signing for
Superb.
Newcastle.
And this is his whole problem, isn't it? He does make absolutely superb saves, but we all know that he's not great with his feet and he's not great judging those through balls. And to be honest, the one against Marseille, he's well misjudged that. Not just a bit misjudged it, he's misjudged it by a long way. Where you could say about the Haaland one, as I think they said on commentary, him coming out, put Haaland off a bit and maybe it worked.
The thing is, though, as well, we can sit here and say that he makes big saves, but Jack has just listed, 4 or 5 instances already this season. Even if you think about pre-season when they played Celtic, he completely misjudged something. I know those games don't mean much, but once again, he's getting that kind of thing wrong when that's meant to be one of his strengths, is being a sweeper keeper. And I just think...
Not one of his strengths being a sweeper keeper, though. Why is it meant to be one of his strengths?
I think it was during the season Newcastle finished 4th. I think if you think about the way Newcastle played... No, but he did, but he... in terms of sweeping, in terms of coming out and clearing the long ball, because Newcastle didn't have a lot of pace in the back line, but it was still a really good defence because whenever the ball got played over the top, Pope would just come out and just head it away. Apart from against Liverpool, where he absolutely nested up.
Yeah, I just think as well, it's the fact that you've got a keeper there who you've brought in the summer. All right, it wasn't the first choice for Newcastle. They were after James Trafford. But when you've got someone who seems capable enough, who's also a really decent shot stopper as well, we've seen that in the past, especially when he was at Arsenal. I mean, how much of a risk do you think it is, Jack, for Eddie Howe now to select Nick Pope against Everton? Because if Nick Pope makes a mistake in that game, that's on Eddie Howe.
Yeah, I think we talked about it in the last podcast where I said that Howe's loyal to his players, and understandably so, because they've never really let him down. But it's starting to get to the point where they are letting him down. Nick Pope is letting him down now. Like, when a goalkeeper makes a mistake, it's a lot more costly than when a defender makes a mistake or a midfielder makes a mistake, usually, because it usually leads to a direct goal. And it is leading to direct goals. Ramsdale is better with his feet. I think he's a bit more of a, I think, you were saying the last one, he's a bit more like a leader. And he's going to shout with the defence. And I think that might actually be good. I think the defence might have a bit more confidence if Ramsdale's behind them. And whenever Ramsdale's played so far this season, thinking sort of the cup game, especially against Spurs, so he was really good against Spurs. I mean, top save to deny Pat Matasar. So I think it's time for Ramsdale to come into the team. I'm sorry, Pope's been a brilliant signing for us. £10 million, top draw. But the best teams move players on, and it's time to. If we're going to be one of these best teams that we have been for the last 3 years, it's now time for Pope to come out the team.
You sort of say, Jack, sorry about that, but it's time. But that is surely the point of bringing in Aaron Ramsdale as a keeper, an England international, played for a top club, to put pressure on Nick Pope to say, I want place. And for us to say, well, actually, Ramsdale's a pretty top keeper, so what's the problem? Yeah. It's not like we're bringing him some rookie reserve keeper. He's top-class keeper.
And it's so frustrating as well, because I think you both pointed out how decent the first half was. All right, Marseille threatened at times, but you're away in the Champions League. It's going to happen. It did feel like that moment of madness then changed the mentality of Newcastle once again. And then you get back into that mindset of, we're not very good away from home, and eventually the second half gets away from them. And that was the other point I was going to bring up. It's not just this game that we've seen Newcastle fade in the second half so much. Even when you think about West Ham, never really looked like getting back into it. Brentford as well. Do you feel like that is starting to become a real problem for them, the mentality?
A mentality thing. And there's no real logic to it nowadays. Teams play virtually the same way, whether they're away from home or at home. They don't. You've got to go back a long way, I agree. But in the old days of 2 points for a win, you think, oh, well, if we get a point, that's pretty good. Yeah. We'll play a bit defensively, we'll hold on. That's not how teams play anymore. You attack, you don't say, oh, well, we're away from home, so we'll play a bit different. Usually, you play the same way. So I'm not sure there's a logic to it. What, you haven't got the Toon Army behind you? Well, we've got a pretty vociferous away support.
They work out pretty unreal.
I don't see why it should be a big problem, but you're right, it's probably getting into everybody's heads now more than it should do.
Definitely. I think we have changed the way we play away from home. If you think about Bournemouth away, played back three, Leeds away, played back three. Last night played back three. By the way, I thought the back three worked last night. I thought it worked.
But the mentality is not defensive, though, is it, Jack? The mentality is still to attack. We've talked on here about the fact we still love to get our wingers out there. We still love to get the ball into the box. And I know sometimes we haven't created as much as we should doing that. But the mentality, I think, is not a defensive mentality. It is an attacking one still, even though it doesn't necessarily work.
It does feel like away from home now, because it's going on for so long, this issue, that when we're taking the lead, then I don't even think this is on Howe. I think this is the players naturally sort of retreating back and conceding possession. Because as soon as Newcastle scored, I thought we started the game brilliantly last night. And then we scored, and then Marseille had probably about 20 minutes where they were sort of on top. It wasn't like they were the absolute dominator or anything, but Newcastle definitely receded possession and ceded
But we
ground.
started pressing really
we
hard.
did.
I mean, really on top of them. It
We
was
did.
a bit like a PlayStation game, wasn't it?
Yeah.
It was everybody buzzing about and winning the ball, not letting them on the ball for a second. So, in terms of away performance, I thought it looked like a home performance to start with.
Yeah, it was just I think that the issue we had was, to be honest, the waste of opportunities on the counter-attack. You know, there was some brilliant opportunities on the counter-attack where, like, Murphy just under a pass, or Gordon missed an open goal. Literally missed an open goal. Willock charges down the right wing. He puts it on a plate for Gordon. The keeper's come out and missed it.
Yeah.
Gordon just needs to
There wasn't
throw
much
himself
made
at
of
it.
that, was
there
there?
was made nothing
Just
of
before
it.
half-time,
Because it was just before half-time, so there was no
before
replay.
half-time.
Yeah.
That's right. And I
Missed an
couldn't
open
quite
goal.
understand at the time. Did I not see that correctly, that one?
Because the keeper's missed it.
But also, I mean, once again, and in a way, it's difficult for Howe, isn't it? Because of the injury to Owen Wissa, there aren't many other options, if any other options, on the bench, and he's got to give Nick Voltemade a rest at some point. Remember that he was obviously, playing for Germany during the international break as well. But Anthony Gordon, for me, so far this season, has not shown that he can play as a number 9. And he can't finish off chances like that. And that really cost Newcastle. Because if you go in at the break with a 2-goal lead, like you say, Jack, it's a completely different game.
When you saw that lineup and you saw that Gordon was centre forward, didn't you all go,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Even though we're told he's brilliant and always really, really good, him there, I agree with you. But Howe seems to have a lot more faith in him playing that position than any of us do.
Yeah.
Because he did it well for the England under-21s ones in the Euros. Yeah. He wouldn't play the tournament. But still, like, he's not done it for Newcastle in the Premier League. But equally, I'm sorry, Gordon's form he's talking about, because we are talking about now well over a year where he's had 3 good months. That is it. For whatever reason, it's not happening. Harvey Barnes has to start. If we go back to the 4-3-3, Harvey Barnes has to start on the left wing for Newcastle. There is no question about it. He's got 7 goals this season, Barnes. And they're all in his last 8 games as well. Like, he's flying and he's delivering consistently. And it's what I am a big Harvey Barnes fan, I am, admittedly. But, still, he consistently delivers in the final third, consistently delivers chances, consistently creates opportunities to score goals and scores goals as well. He was unlucky not to score in the second half as well. Brilliant shot that just bent just wide. What's Gordon doing? He's involved further back in the play, but when he gets into the final third, I'm seeing nothing from him.
It's funny, Shaun, as well. I mean, Harvey Barnes was excellent as well in the Man City win.
Yeah.
So other than that miss, we don't have to talk about that. Though,
yeah.
Luckily, they went on to win.
That was an open goal as well.
And he scored 2 goals. And it's funny because the conversation following that was whether he was going to play for Scotland. But Jack makes a good point. If Anthony Gordon's making it into England squads, I would say Harvey
I'm not
Barnes
sure
on form at the
Tuchel's going to
moment.
change that, though, is he now? I think he's pretty set in his ways. It'd be unlikely to bring somebody in from the outside. He'll have to do something really, really exceptional. But if I was Harvey Barnes, I'd go and play for Scotland.
Would you?
Well, what is he, 27-year-old now?
Yeah.
There's a World Cup coming up. It's a great opportunity to play in a tournament. Who knows where you are when you're 31? I think I'd do it.
No, I think my thing is, if Gordon's in the England squad, doing nothing, because say we get the end of the season and Gordon is the backup left winger because Harvey Barnes has had his best season ever, right? How is Gordon going to the World Cup? He's not. He shouldn't be. Just because he's played well for England in a couple of games, he shouldn't be going. It should be Harvey Barnes going. I'm not saying Barnes should be in the England squad, but I'm saying if Gordon is in the England squad and Barnes is then starting over him, and why is Barnes not going
But I
instead?
don't think Tuchel has factored in Barnes at all.
He hasn't.
Into his thinking for the World Cup. And Barnes knows that. And to be fair, why would he have done really until the last 2 or 3 months?
I get that, yeah.
Now he's playing really well, but it would be very left field now for him to do that.
But Barnes had a great 2025 though. 10 goals all year.
Absolutely. It's just clinical.
Yeah.
Absolutely clinical. Just going back to the result against Marseille,
10 goals
it's not the end of the world, that loss. Newcastle's still in a decent position to qualify. You'd imagine that 3 points doesn't definitely get them over the line, but it should get them over the line. They've still got to play Leverkusen away, PSV at home, which is one that they have to target, and then PSG away. which obviously is going to be a very difficult game. But they've done quite well against PSG in recent seasons, of course.
But didn't you feel the reaction last night, even among the fans, I think, was a little bit, well, it doesn't matter, we'll probably get through it. It's not a disaster to have lost that game. Whereas we should really have been thinking, you know what, if we'd won that game, that would have taken so much pressure off. And now you feel there's a little bit of pressure on.
Even a point.
But I thought the fan reaction was pretty, from what I saw, it was actually pretty the other way around. I thought it was pretty harsh. Not harsh, like almost actually
all right,
fair.
well, possibly what I mean is from Eddie Howe.
Maybe
it was a little bit.
Yeah, that's fair.
So it's okay. It's not the end of the world. We've got 9 points. We've still got 3 games to go.
Did it feel with his team selection, Jack, that he was more focused on winning in the Premier League against Everton than beating Marseille and making it a bit more comfortable in the Champions League?
I don't know, because I think that he saw Marseille, the way Marseille play with De Zerbi. We know De Zerbi likes to play a high line. I think he thought the pace of Willock, Barnes and Gordon would actually be the one causing problems. But actually, what might have caused them more problems would have been Walter drawing men to the ball and then him slipping it in behind. Because we saw when he came on, he actually created a great chance for Alanga. I think there was another opportunity created as well. So I get that, but you have got, unfortunately, with Asula and Visser injured, we can't just keep playing him every game. So you have to take a risk, and at some point you have to not start him. He'll be starting on Saturday, and I would assume he'll start against Spurs as well.
But as Ollie says, what about altering the defence? Did he really need to do that?
Well, go to a back three. I thought, to be honest though, the thing is, I thought the tactics were right, and I thought they worked, because Marseille played a back three as well. We went man for man, and it's literally Nick Pope's error that has changed the game. I don't think it's on Howe. I think Howe got it right, to be fair.
Yeah,
I think
and
if the second half had gone on as 1-0, I think Newcastle would have scored a second goal.
Even if you look at the Man City game as well, there were some tactical tweaks that he made that did work. The main one, ironically, being Tonali moving a bit deeper. Bruno moving a bit deeper and Tonali a bit further forward, which is strange because last season it was the other way round, and that's when Newcastle started to play really well. And it's interesting, isn't it? Because that Man City win was also Howe's 100th win as Newcastle manager in all competitions. To give a bit of positivity, because we need a bit. I just wanted to ask you, what is your favourite Eddie Howe win? But I'm going to make a rule. You can't have the League Cup final and you can't have PSG, because those two feel like the obvious ones. So Jack, I'll start with you.
Okay. I've had 2. I'm going to go 6-1 Tottenham. Because, Newcastle were 5-0 up after 21 minutes. And, I was looking at what the record... I remember when we were winning. I was like, what's the record? What's the record Premier League win? What is it? And we're going to absolutely smash these out the park. Because it was like when Spurs had just sacked Conte had left or whatever, and the Stellini was in charge. And they still had Harry Kane, etc. And they rocked up, and it was absolutely unbelievable. And Willock played one of the best passes I have ever seen. I mean, that assist for the Isak goal is just on this another planet. And that was Willock playing at the top of his game. And it was nice to see actually last night that he was a bit back to those levels, kind of, because that when he was playing that season, he was unplayable. But I just love that man.
Yeah. Shaun, what would you go for?
Well, you said we couldn't have the League Cup final, but we can have the semi-final, because I thought the away game against Arsenal was perfection. I thought it was a really big test of Newcastle, where we are season, how much progress we made. And there were, let's be honest, there was a lot of pressure on Arsenal, and there was a lot of talk about can they win the title? Are they now looking the business? And we just dominated the away game. I know we finished it off nicely in the second leg, but we dominated that away game, and we were easily the better side. And it gave me a lot of confidence. It gave me a lot of confidence for the final, obviously, but it just felt it was a real statement. I mean, sometimes, let's be honest, when you play Spurs, anything can happen. I realise 5 in 20 minutes.
5 in 20 minutes.
It's not usual, but Spurs fans wouldn't be that shocked necessarily, to be honest. Whereas you're playing at Arsenal, and I've seen us put in some pretty poor performances there. And I remember a really dour 0-0 draw on Tuesday night, which was horrific.
Yeah.
Although everybody said, defensively we were very good.
That was brilliant. That was on the ball. The ball was in play for like 40 minutes.
40 minutes. But this was, we took the game to them. You know, that wasn't a question of playing it defensively or maybe getting them back to St James's. We took the attack to them. possibly the best performance I've seen really Howe, given the opposition.
And it was a tactical masterclass as well from Howe. I feel like that game. That was actually going to be the one that I brought up, but don't worry, I've got a few up my sleeve as well. I was in the away end for that night as well, which was incredible. But I'm actually going to go a bit earlier on.
Yeah.
And the Leicester game where Bruno scored in the final minute, and I just think they had so much momentum at that point, having stayed up and been excellent, and it was just that last minute winner, not just the euphoria of it, but I felt like it gave you confidence for what was to come and the seasons to come, and obviously that paid off. The season after that, finishing fourth. There are so many wins you could go for, but I just felt like that moment was so important. And so brilliant under Eddie Howe, and just to see Bruno celebrating that goal was absolutely incredible. So there we go. There we go. He's not all bad, Eddie Howe. I promise. He's not all bad. Maybe under a bit of pressure at the moment, but his 100th win was a very good one against Manchester City, and let's be honest, that could have been in there for us as well, because it's not often that they do beat Manchester City. It was his first league win over them as a manager as well. Now, if I mention the buzzword PSR, it probably makes you shudder as a Newcastle fan. The Premier League's profit and sustainability rules have made it really difficult, haven't they, for the club to invest in the way that they've wanted to. But those rules are changing. Clubs in the top flight have voted for a new system called Squad Cost Ratio, or SCR. That's the new buzzword you have to learn, which will come into play from next season. So before we get too excited that PSR is disappearing, will these new rules let Newcastle spend big, or will it be the same old story? There's only one man to ask, the Oracle of Football Finance and host of the Price of Football podcast, Kieran Maguire. Kieran, hope you're well. Just firstly, could you outline for us what these rule changes are?
Certainly, Ollie. Under the present rules, a club is allowed to lose £105 million over 3 years. That's going to be replaced with a set of rules which are broadly in alignment with those of UEFA. And what it will say is that for every £100 that the club generates from ticket sales, from the TV deals and from commercial activities, plus it looks like it's going to be a third of any profits they make from player sales. You take all of those numbers together and you can spend £85 on that, on player wages, head coach wages, transfer fees per season, is what we call amortization, player write-downs and agents' fees. So it's an accountant's Christmas in terms of the ability to mess around with numbers. And then in the first season, they've got sort of transitional rules. You can actually spend £115 on all of this, but then you have to spend less in future years. So this sits alongside the UEFA rules, which are effectively the same. But if Newcastle United are in the Champions League, they can only spend £70 on all of these. So the UEFA rules would effectively take precedence.
So I guess the question really is, do you think that this will be a positive change for Newcastle, or is it still going to be very difficult for them to invest?
It is going to be very difficult. We certainly saw that in the 23-24 accounts, where they'd had a couple of years of acceleration and that they had to go and slam the brakes on, and we had those strange transfers taking place just before Newcastle's year end, which meant that they lost Elliot Anderson and they lost Minte as well, when they didn't really want to sell those players, and understandably so. So I think these rules will make a minor difference, but it's very frustrating from Newcastle's point of view, because if you take a look at Liverpool or Manchester City, they're both bringing in £700 million a year. 70% of 700 is 490. Newcastle realistically are bringing in £300 million. 70% of 300 means that they can spend £210 million. So they've got half of the budget of the clubs that they want to be playing alongside of in terms of ability to pay wages and recruit. And that it creates a huge frustration, because the owners have the money to spend more. And you could argue that Newcastle United are being discriminated against because they're on the wrong side of history, because Roman Abramovich was allowed to spend unprecedented amounts of money. Sheikh Mansour could do the same for Manchester City. The owners of Paris Saint-Germain were able to do so. And then they brought down the guillotine. And it's unfortunate for clubs such as Newcastle. And also I'd probably include Villa, potentially Nottingham Forest, and even Everton, now that they've got new owners. Certainly when I talk to people associated with those clubs, they're very frustrated.
Kieran, I feel like I've talked to you quite a bit about all this stuff over the last few years, but I rarely get a chance to talk specifically about Newcastle United. Do you think that the Saudis realised what was going to happen when they took over Newcastle? And equally, I don't think Newcastle fans realised, because there was all that celebrating, we're the richest club in the world. Come on, let's buy everybody. We're going to buy, well, you know, Messi and Ronaldo. Maybe it's not them, but maybe it would be Lamine Yamal nowadays. And we couldn't do it. And nobody could really quite understand at first why we couldn't. And now the reality's hit home. What's the point of having rich owners?
It is incredibly frustrating. At the same time, Newcastle United have qualified for the Champions League in 2 years out of the last 3 seasons. Would that have taken place under Mike Ashley? I think highly unlikely. When the new owners came in, I appreciate that Mike Ashley is a divisive figure. He actually left behind a club which was the perfect club to buy as far as trying to be competitive and trying to grow in the Premier League, because Newcastle United actually had a PSR profit, let alone a loss of 105 million. And that's why we saw that initial significant investment in players, but that couldn't be maintained simply because Newcastle, they don't as yet have the global support and the global outreach and the global sort of commercial partners that the likes of Manchester United and Liverpool have, because those brands have been at the top of English football for decades. So that's the frustration. So yes, I think there was an awful lot of celebration, mainly due to the fact that the new owner was not called Mike Ashley. And the fact that the owners were able to invest was a good thing, but then the brakes had to be slammed on. And there were people like me who were sort of being a bit wet blankets at the time, saying, well, you have to take into consideration these rules. And I can understand amongst all the euphoria why perhaps that would have been sort of marginalised and dismissed.
Just quickly,
perfectly understandable.
Just outside of that, if they said, and we've talked about Newcastle's training ground, for instance, for a long, long time, if they said, tell you what, we're going to build you a £70 million super training ground, here you go, there's the cash. They can do that outside these rules, can't they?
Absolutely. What you spend on outside of player costs, fill your boots. Increase the capacity of the stadium, bring in new fan zones, new training facilities, all of that is excluded. Although, again, under UEFA rules, there's another set. And the trouble is we're operating in an environment where there are rules and rules and rules. And it means that Newcastle are restricted in terms of their losses, but infrastructure spend is deemed to be sort of a virtue. We want to improve facilities for fans. We want to have the players to have the best training facilities and medical facilities. So those tend to be exempt from the cost controls.
Kieran, as far as I'm aware, anchoring got voted against as well by the Premier League. From what I was looking at, that would have actually been helpful for Newcastle. Was that the case? Is that actually going to hinder Newcastle not having anchoring?
Anchoring would have been great. Now, anchoring in isolation would have been absolutely fantastic for a club such as Newcastle United, because what would have happened there is that you take the club with the lowest amount of TV income. So last season, we've not got the figures yet, but I suspect it was around about £120 million for Southampton. You multiplied that by 5. We'll park as to why you multiply by 5. So that gives you a figure of £600 million. And every club in the Premier League would have that as an equal ceiling. So all of a sudden, Newcastle could take their wage bill, which is currently around about £200 million, and they could have trebled it. And that means that they would have been able to be competitive with the likes of Liverpool and Manchester United and Chelsea and the other big payers at Premier League level. And look, Newcastle United are not paupers. If you take a look at their wage bill, the average weekly wage based on my stats has gone from around about 35 grand a week in 2016. 2024, it was up to 100 grand a week. So that's still pretty impressive. But City are averaging 180 and so on.
Just finally, Kieran, it's not been the perfect start to the season for Newcastle so far. There was a lot of investment in the summer. By your readings and calculations, maybe, how much business do you think they could do if they wanted to in January?
Well, the sale of Alexander Isak has effectively opened up the coffers again, because when you sell a player, all of that profit goes into the accounts for 1 year, but when you buy a player, the cost is spread over normally the 5 years of the contract. So certainly, could Newcastle spend 100, 200 million pounds as far as this summer's window, as January's window is concerned? Yes, they can. I think it's more of an issue of clubs are reluctant to let their best players go in January, and there are complications in terms of whether they're eligible for Champions League participation as well.
Kieran, thank you very much indeed. Kieran Maguire there, the Oracle of Football Finance, of course, and host of the Price of Football podcast. Were they to strengthen in January, Shaun, what do you think would be the priority positions that you would pick out that they need to go for?
But as Jack mentioned before, if Whistler gets fit, then do we need to worry about strikers-wise? We're still, I keep going back to the fact we're still told we've got the greatest midfield in the country, and the backups, come on, we were singing Lewis Miley's praise 2 years ago, so we should be all right there. Livramento and Hall we're happy with. I don't know. I genuinely don't know what it is. It's not a goalkeeper because we've got another good one in reserve. So
I think it's a backup left back. 100%. I can't be having Dan Burn at left back again. Sorry, I
Lewis
can't.
Hall's supposed to be left.
No, backup.
Backup.
Sorry.
But that's despite the results this season.
Yeah, but that's a strange thing to go out and say, what we need in January is a backup left back.
I think they do need one. I think they do need one because that's been a massive problem. Dan Burn filling in at left back, I felt sorry for him because it's not his position. But do you think it is a bit strange? It is a bit strange that Newcastle haven't won an away game in the Premier League this season, and yet all we're saying they need to do this window is get a backup left back.
No, you are right. But if you look at the squad, obviously Alanga is not started as any of us would have wanted him to start, but there's a good player there. I don't think you need another winger. I think Gordon, as much as I've just spent quite a long time criticising him, you've got to give him. You've got to still give him some time to show his form. Maybe look. He would probably be the one I would sell in the summer if it comes to a big sale. He would be the one I'd sell in the summer. But in January, are you going to necessarily be able to sell him and replace him? I don't know. I don't think so.
Isn't this the age-old debate Newcastle fans have in the pubs? And we do have a lot of debates in the pubs after games and during the week. Everybody's got their favourites. They all look at the team. And most people are pretty favourable towards all 11 starters. There's not somebody saying, he's absolutely useless. Well, Gordon for you. But apart from that, Ollie, seriously, and we say maybe Nick Pope should be replaced by Ramsdale, but who else, when you've got a fully fit team, are you kicking out, saying they're not up to it? I can't think of anybody.
But I guess, especially away from home, though, there's been such a drop-off with the key players. And it's so frustrating, isn't it? Because you see how well, the likes of Bruno or Tonali or you can pick pretty much all of the players. They play so well at home against a team like Manchester City, but the drop-off away is alarming. It is really, really concerning. And,
so what do you do? I don't
do you need any kind of fresh legs to come in just to give a bit of a lift, to give a bit of impetus, give a bit more competition to some of these players?
I think in some games you can maybe start playing Jacob Ramsey a bit. I mean, I've spent £42 million on him. I would like to see Jacob Ramsey play a lot more. I mean, I feel like he'll add that dynamism. For example, look, playing Everton on Saturday. I would imagine Howe will start Joe Linton because Joe Linton didn't play a single minute against Marseille. However, that is a game that is screaming out for Jacob Ramsey because Everton are probably going to have less of the ball than we are. I'd be surprised if Everton have more of the ball than we are. Joe Linton was brilliant in the Man City game because that's the perfect match for him to run around, smash into people and be aggressive. In a game like Everton, we need someone to break the lines, just a bit of creativity. He's not that man. I want to see Jacob Ramsey starting some more games. In matches like that, when we're going to teams away from home where we're going to have more of the ball, it's going to be emphasis on us to break them down. You need a player like Jacob Ramsey starting, not a Joe Linton.
It's funny you brought up Jacob Ramsey though, because like you say, it was a pretty hefty fee.
Yeah, it's quite a lot.
About 41 million, as you said, Jack. I mean, how would you rate the summer transfer window out of 10? Now that it's we're what 12 Premier League games into this season. We had a number of Champions League games, a number of Cup games, some of which have gone better than others, of course. How would you now rate the business that Newcastle did in the summer?
It's tricky, isn't it? Because I think Chow and Voldemar are the only players who've actually really delivered. Visser, we've not actually been able to see the chance for him to. Elanga, we've talked about his struggles. You know, we're looking at no goals, no assists in every game, unless you can't win the penalty in a Champions League game as an assist, which some people do, but not really as an assist, is it? So no goals, no assists. Really struggling. Then you have Ramsey, who I really rate as a player. I just want to see him played a bit more. Because I think when he's played, he's looked pretty lively, and certainly in a few games.
Does it say a lot that someone like Joe Willock was picked ahead of Ramsey for the Marseille game?
I got it with the formation, though. You know, because to be fair, when I initially saw the lineup, I assumed we were playing a back four with Byrne at left back, and then I was like, eh. But then when I saw Willock was on the right wing in a back three, that made a bit more sense. I was fine with that.
It is quite a difficult one. You don't get involved in this very much, Ollie, and this particular bit. And I'm like saying to you, well, who is it that you want out of the team replaced, and who do you want to bring in? And it isn't an easy thing, because we tend to think most of the players are pretty good.
But I don't.
We're not sure what the upgrade is on them. We've got a load of wingers.
I think the problem at the moment has been the depth of the squad. I feel like, the thing is,
the depth. Miley, Botman, Elanga, Ramsey are on the.
Elanga's not in form.
But he's 55 million quid.
It's difficult with the form.
We can sit here and say on paper,
I know,
it looks like depth.
Hang on, he was bought
in form, there's no depth, Shaun.
He's bought in the summer for this team to take us on. You can't suddenly say in November, well, that was wasted.
But at the moment, they're not showing the form.
Agreed. So what do you do?
What do you do?
So you want to go out and spend what? 100 million, 150 million quid on what?
Well, it's going to depend where we are in January, isn't it, Shaun? Because
no, but what
at
do you
the
want?
moment, where are they? 14th in the league.
I agree with you. I'm just saying you're posing these questions, but what actually do you want?
Do you know what? I think the problem maybe is that potentially over the last few seasons, we've almost been a bit spoiled as fans in terms of how well Newcastle's recruited.
Definitely, yeah.
So it's a bit strange to look at this team now and think, that signing hasn't quite worked, that signing hasn't quite worked yet. And to be fair, Shaun, we have seen in the past with some of Newcastle's signings that they have taken a bit of time to become good. So Lewis Hall's a great example. Even Anthony Gordon is a good example. And in a way, like you say, Jack, his form's kind of dropped off. But I think with the ambitions that Newcastle have, and we've just heard from Kieran there, the amount of money that they can spend, why not add more competition to the squad when at the moment there isn't the depth there, because none of those players are in form and they're not quite pulling their weight in the shirt.
We can't really decide what we want. What position do you want? OK, a backup left back has been the best we've come up with so far. Where do you want it?
Do you know what? It's funny because when you look at the centre of the park as well, obviously Bruno and Tonali are fantastic players. And like I mentioned, they're amazing against Manchester City. Is it difficult for them, though, to carry that load of playing so many games? Because I felt in that Marseille game, in the second half, and we've seen it before this season, they just begin to fade. They get sloppy. Even Bruno said it himself after the game, sloppy on the ball, not quite good enough at ball retention. Is it a case of needing more competition in those areas that isn't just the likes of players like Miley and Ramsey, who I do rate, but are they taking Bruno and Tonali's place in the side? I'm not quite sure.
Yeah, I get that. I think, to be honest, I actually thought Bruno played well against Marseille, to be fair. I saw some varying opinions, but I thought he was good. But either way, I think that ultimately Bruno and Tonali have carry a lot of responsibility in terms of dictating the play because Lewis Hall and Livramento have not been fit for how many weeks that was. I think we saw against Manchester City with Hall and Livramento playing, Bruno and Tonali had a lot more space and time because Manchester City had to send players out to actually go and deal with Hall and Livramento because, they're actually good at football. They're good on the ball. They can create an opportunity. They can play a pass. So then suddenly when the ball came into Bruno Tonali, they had a lot more space, I thought, to then get the ball forward. I feel like against Marseille, once we had one of the two on, so then it was a bit different. I feel like once, again, they're both back in the team starting most games. They can't start every game. Most games, you can already see that the load eases on Bruno and Tonali a little bit more. So I think that'll be the thing.
Yeah.
So who do you want?
Competition.
But you want it in central midfield then, do you?
Central midfield, I think, still the right wing. Still the right wing.
Yeah.
But you can't go spending 55 million suddenly decide, oh, that hasn't worked within, 4 months?
I know.
It's ludicrous. You've just said
It's a
Lewis
big
Hall
problem for
took
Newcastle
a
at
year.
the moment, isn't it?
Lewis
It is a
Hall
problem,
took a year, right, to get
Uh-huh.
to come through, to get position, and now we're saying we're dumping. And to be honest, I've said on this before, I don't think Elanga we should have bought, because I don't think he proved it at Man United properly. He couldn't hold down a place, and there were times at Nottingham Forest where he didn't start, and we've spent all that money, but you can't expect, having spent 55 million quid, to not give Eddie a chance, a good coach in Eddie Howe, a chance to make it work.
But who's the other natural
How long was Joe
winger?
Linton? How long was Joe? How long
Why
was
can't
Joe
you
Linton?
get someone in
How long
who's
was Joe
replacement
Linton at
for
our club
Murphy?
before he got converted to what he does now?
Yeah, no, George.
Right?
Yeah.
How much was Steve Bruce pilloried for playing him up front and scoring very few goals, and he's useless. We've got to get rid of him.
I think the point
Eddie
now
Howe
is,
came in and made him a great
Can
midfield
they afford
player.
to be this patient, though? That's the thing.
Well,
Can they really afford to be this patient?
It's
with the
difficult with
ambitions they should have?
with the ambition they have. Yeah, I think Murphy's a fair point because you know what, he's an unbelievable crosser of the ball. However, I do think his passing really let us down. The amount of times he lost the ball last night, where he could have played someone through, or just even a simple pass inside to midfield, really let us down. So I'll you know what, I love Murphy. He's been such a servant for us, and the way he's improved massively. And his crossing is top draw. And you've got to keep him in the team for that. But you do want your right winger to also offer a little bit more in possession as well. So, yeah, maybe that. But I think Elanga, look, Newcastle have not really had any misses in the transfer window, realistically, since the takeover. I can maybe say Lloyd Kelly. You could argue Chris Wood as well, but Chris Wood still scored some important goals and then went for a decent fee anyway. So there hasn't been many. I feel like Elanga will eventually come good. I don't know when. This is the issue, but we've got to give him some time.
Just before we move on to Everton, I just want to talk about the next away games, because that has been obviously the most pressing issue, has been the away form. They have Leverkusen away, and Jack and I will be heading out.
We're going,
Inside the Toon correspondent, looking forward to that. It will then be the derby. Now, difficult question this, because of course Newcastle are not definitely through in the Champions League, but it will depend on the Everton result. But obviously that derby is incredibly important. But if it's still no away win in the league, that importance will ramp up even further. What does Eddie Howe do heading into that Leverkusen game? Which game becomes more
the
important?
strongest team in Leverkusen. He's got to. What is the point of qualifying for the Champions League and then saying we might have to play a reduced team there because we've got Sunderland at the weekend? I mean, seriously, you've got to play your strongest team. But we lost the chance to give ourselves a bit of a get-out by not at least getting a point last night. Against.
Does that show how damaging last night was, Jack?
Definitely, potentially. I think ultimately, when going Leverkusen, he's just got to pick the team that he thinks is going to be the best to win that game. I think if you look at the derby, I want Joe Linton starting in the derby. You know, Sunderland win the most duels in the Premier League. We've won the least. It was before the Man City game. I don't know what it is now, but it was. So we need Joe Linton starting in a game like that. You know, you probably need Dan Burn starting a centre-back maybe in a game like that, just because they're a physical team. So we need to match their physicality. Newcastle's whole game plan for years has been the physicality and being able to overrun players, overrun teams. Teams have caught up a little bit now. They've got physical players. We're not the most physical team in the league anymore, so we need to match that in the derby.
Just finally, Shaun, how are you feeling about this Everton game then coming up? It's kind of strange with Everton, isn't it? Does it feel like there's a mini rivalry? It's kind of like the Anthony Gordon, Jordan Pickford derby. I think it's ever since that fella dressed up as a T-Rex.
Yeah, the T-Rex.
It's kind of been a kind of mini rivalry there. But I mean, it's going to be tough.
We're a better team than Everton. We just are a better team. I really think that. But it's a bit edgy at the moment, isn't it? I'm feeling like a 1-0 maybe, and just to. It seems ridiculous they get our confidence back having beaten Man City. But
I know, it's crazy.
It's mad, but we feel like we've taken a step back after Marseille. So I'm feeling a little nervous about it, but I do think we've got enough to get the job done. To be fair to Pickford, he's one of those pantomime villains, isn't he? He loves playing against us, and he loves to wind us up, and we actually find it quite funny. But he'll have Everton properly fired up not to lose that game.
Pickford's changed the way he used to play against Newcastle. I remember that game we beat them 3-2 at St James's Park where he was at fault, where he gave away a penalty initially, and then he was at fault for a goal that Perez scored where he just palmed it out from Almiron. So it used to get in his head a bit more. Now I think he gets in the St James's Park heads, to be fair. Everton are a good team. Grealish, Dewsbury Hall and Njai are very, very good ball carriers and have caused a lot of problems. The only thing they've got is their two strikers are useless, Barry and Beto. So they'll both score now.
Yeah, cheers, Jack. Cheers for that. I'll tell you what, one thing we have to mention is Everton's last game against Manchester United saw Idrissa Gueye have a fight with Michael Keane. And
It was like Boyu and
I was so glad, because every time there's a little infight with teammates, Dyer and Bowyer get brought up. Finally, it might be Gueye and Keane.
It wasn't on that level.
But yeah, it wasn't Souness dragging them out for an apology. That was absolutely crazy. Do you know something mad about that game too? That's the last time Aston Villa won in the league at St James's Park.
And Steve
It's absolutely crazy.
And Steve Taylor got sent off.
yeah. For handball.
Game where he got shot.
Yeah.
That was brilliant.
Exactly.
When he blocked with his chest, on the line,
We'll see how they get on this weekend, and plenty of games to come, and plenty of games for Newcastle to sort some of that away form out, and hopefully they carry on being brilliant at home.
Yeah.
Gents, thank you very much indeed. That's all we've got time for on this week's Inside the Toon. Big thanks to Shaun, Custis and Jack Cunningham, as always. Make sure you join us again next time. You'll find us on the talkSPORT and talkSPORT Newcastle YouTube channels. Goodbye.